Hello, so this is another Brad Warner video called Do I Deserve to Survive? Once again, I might pause it every once in a while to put in my own thoughts, but it was just overall, I wanted to hear what he had to say. So, thanks for watching.
I've been thinking about the pandemic. Aren't we all thinking about the pandemic? And one of the things I've thought about this pandemic is that I want to survive it. Imagine that's your view too. You'd like to survive the pandemic. And somebody like me, given my age and health and everything, is probably going to survive this pandemic. And probably most of you are going to survive it just fine too. But some of us, in this world are not going to survive it, and you don't want to be one of those people, I assume. So I was thinking about, well, why don't I want to be one of those people? And this led me to thinking about the Buddhist meal chant. When you are on a retreat, a Zen Buddhist retreat, one of the things you do is every time that you eat a meal, you chant something called the 5 reflections. And the first 2 are the ones I want to talk about in terms of this surviving the pandemic thing. We reflect on the effort that brought us this food and consider how it comes to us. We reflect on our virtue and merit and whether we are worthy of this offering. And sometimes we reflect on our virtue and practice and whether we are worthy of this offering, depending on whose translation you're using. I can't remember the original well enough to know which one is correct, but they're both useful. So every time you eat a meal, pandemic or not, something has put in effort, and very likely things have died for your meal. If you're a meat eater, that'll be obvious, but even if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, there are things that are dying to get you to give you nutrition. Your carrots are dying, your radishes are dying, your potatoes are dying, the bugs that lived on that, the blood that they use to fertilize it. That's a weird thing if you don't know about that. They use animal blood for fertilizer. There's all sorts of things that go in there. So just the fact of being alive means you are causing tremendous damage and chaos and pain all over the place, even if you try your best not to. This is kind of the mistake, and maybe somebody will take me to task for saying this, but it's kind of the mistake of the Jains, which are a group that started out around the same time as the Buddhists, and they had a very radical view of this concept of ahimsa, which is do no harm. And their ahimsa concept meant that they had to be absolute vegans, and some of them won't wear clothes at all because they feel that does violence, and they wear a mask, just like we're all doing now, to cover their mouths to avoid breathing in poor little bacteria and coronaviruses, and harming them. And they sweep the broom. They have a little broom that they carry and sweep in front of them to make sure they don't do any harm. And that's all nice, but even when you try to minimize it to that level, you are still causing harm. So this is the kind of thing that will make a person who is reflective reflect on why do I deserve to survive this? And when I think about it in terms of myself, I think about, and I've mentioned it on this channel, and you can go back a few episodes if you want details, but the fact that my mother died of Huntington's disease in 2007. That meant that I had, and still have technically, a 50% chance of dying of Huntington's disease. And if you're worried about the 1% chance, or for most of you, less than 1% chance you have of dying of coronavirus, think about a 50% chance of dying of Huntington's disease. If somebody gave me a choice, do you want to die this year of coronavirus or die in 15 years of Huntington's disease, I would choose the coronavirus, without a moment's hesitation. Not that I think there's a choice like that, and I hope God isn't listening and thinking I'm making that choice. I'd rather not die of either one. But that's how bad it is. It's a really bad thing. And living with this constantly hanging over my head, made me realize that nowadays I'm kind of back to that. And my trajectory of this is that usually Huntington's disease symptoms show up between ages 30 and 40, sometimes as late as 45. But if you get to be age 45 and you haven't shown any symptoms, it's very likely you just don't have the gene. I'm 56 and I haven't shown symptoms, and for the last, let's say 11 years, right? It's been a kind of thing where few, you know, that's at least that's out of the way. I mean, if you want to get technical, there's still people who develop it much later in life, but that's really rare. And so, what happened with the pandemic is I'm suddenly thrust back into that. You know, thrust back into that mindset that I had up until I was 45 years old, where it's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, it's coming, you know, and having seen what my mother went through, which was terrible, I don't want to go through that, you know? Nobody would want to go through that. So now I'm thrust back into it, and it got me thinking the same thing that I thought back in my 20s and 30s and 40s, which is if I'm going to be able to live, I want to deserve to live. You know, I want to be somebody who does something that's worth living. Now
thinking about what he says here, I think the reason why I feel like I deserve is because of my past, my history. I feel like I'm only 27. I do have a high likelihood of surviving this, though I do have a medical condition which would make me one of the people who would be, you know, I do have heart problems, I have asthma, I have, you know, blood disorders that make my blood clot. So if I get this, it would be very serious. But I think one of the reasons I want to be someone, like he mentions, that deserves to live. And I think in order to do that, I haven't done what I need to do on this earth. I haven't fulfilled my purpose and being able to help other people the way that I would like to when I become a case manager. And like, I think so many people can learn from their past, and I've learned from mine and move forward, but I want to get to that point now where I've learned from it and I'm living the best possible life I can and helping those and helping everyone around me and really honoring really the people who have helped me get here. But anyway, back to the video.
this doesn't mean it has to be a great thing, like a grand gesture, like some grand, you know, skyrocket in the sky sort of thing that I do to prove I was here. But what it means is, at least to me, I want to be of service. You know, I want to be doing something that is good for the world, so that when, you know, like they say, when you leave a campsite, leave it cleaner than when you got there, right? That's what I want to do with the world. I want to leave the world a better place than it was when I got here. And I've used the fact of this pandemic to kind of renew that vow. And specifically what I'm doing, in case you want to know, and I don't know if I've mentioned this on the YouTube channel or not, but you know, forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but I've started doing more Zazen. I've upped my Zazen from 2 periods of half an hour or 25 minutes each to 3 periods of 35 to 40 minutes each every day. I'm working harder on reading a lot of these books, you know, trying to figure it all out, and you know, reading all this stuff I've brought over from my apartment to try to kind of get a better philosophical grasp on it, and doing more of these videos and just trying to kind of come to terms with it that way. And to me, that seems important. You know, if I'm just going to survive this pandemic because I want to have more pleasure and avoid more pain, and then eventually die anyway of something that, you know, most likely would be almost the same as dying of coronavirus, frankly. I mean, that's what a lot of people die from, is just basically a flu after they get old. You know, I don't want to spend that time uselessly or wastefully. You know, I want to make it count. And as I say again, it doesn't mean making a grand gesture, but it means making everything I do dedicated towards making the world somehow a better place, because the world is me, you know.
It's kind of the same reason as he's mentioning here. He's been making videos, reading a lot more, trying to get into doing spiritual things, Zazen. I haven't done any Zazen part of it, but it's why I've been looking up some people that I have listened to and have helped me. So like Brad Warner is one. I don't agree with everything he says, but I do agree with some stuff. Like here, I do agree with that. Dan Millman is another one I plan on doing some stuff with. I really enjoyed his book, Way of the Peaceful Warrior. It's one of those spiritual books that I think a lot of people can get different things from. Thich Nhat Hanh, he has a lot of books on mindfulness, which I like to utilize mindfulness for myself. These videos I create for myself to help myself, but anyone who's watching who gets help from it, I'm helping the world in some way. So, anyway, back to the video.
And whether Brad Warner leaves the world or not, the me that is the world continues to be the world. So I want to make sure that I'm not doing the wrong thing, that I'm doing something that's worthwhile. And I'm not going to solve the pandemic, so there's no sense in me sitting around pondering and trying to figure out the solution to it, which is the sort of thing that I do. I don't know how you are, but I spent the first few weeks of this thing trying to figure out the solution for it, as if anybody's going to listen to me if I did come up with it. So there's no point in doing that. The best thing for me to do is understand what my role in this thing is and do that to the utmost of my ability. That's what I wanted to talk about today, and I guess I talked about it.
Hello. I had a goodbye message in some of my other videos. I ended up accidentally deleting it. I just want to take a moment to say thank you for everyone who's watched. I personally have been making these videos for me, and doing them has kept me accountable, and I've learned so much. So if you like these, please like, subscribe, leave me a comment, tell me what you want me to do, really. I admit the coping skills ones are a little bit more for fun than for information. But I came up with this idea because of the COVID stuff going on in the world, and I realized now is the time to start taking better care of myself. Not enough people do. Surprisingly, not surprisingly. But with having no classes, no job, no nothing, just sitting around, and that wasn't me. I needed something to do. So I still am taking classes right now, but I've also for myself. This why I started these videos. Taking care of myself in all 8 dimensions of wellness. But yeah, so if you like it, well, thank you. Subscribe, like, the spiel. Thanks for watching.